Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Hello and welcome to Strategic Frontlines, the YouTube channel of Center for Land Warfare Studies. And today we have three generals. There is another three generals coming on the Clause YouTube channel. We have our esteemed guests, our General P.R. Shankar and General Harimohan Iyer, and both are one is speaking from Bangalore, the other one is speaking from Chennai, and I am speaking from Delhi. So we have a triangle which has been made. And to discuss today, we have, as usual, our Pakistan as the main target, and they have actually come up with an initiative which is called the Army Rocket Force, which is modeled on the Chinese PLA rocket force, and how much of a similarity, etc., is there, that is a matter of detail. But why has it been introduced by Army Rocket Force? Why has it been introduced by Pakistan is a question which we will be trying to answer, and subsequent we'll have some additional questions as well. But before we do that, a very warm welcome to all of you, sir, and we look forward to a very, very lively discussion.
Oh,
And
thanks a lot. It's a very
yeah,
interesting topic you've chosen, Dushyant. So looking forward.
yeah. So, I'll do is I'll briefly apprise the audience as to what exactly is this. So I've got a two slides on this particular
Yeah.
issue. Uh, First of all, is the it is known as Pakistan Rocket Force, and PRF, you can call it, ARF, you can call it, whichever way you want to call it. Exploring the strategic missile capabilities and defense system is what they are intending as per Pakistan. Now, this is not as per us. As per Pakistan, what is what is their strategic capability and defense overview by raising this particular force? First of all, it's a missile system, and their capabilities have been brought together under one umbrella called the rocket force. It operates ballistic missiles, cruise missiles capable of delivering conventional and nuclear payloads with high precision. I mean, that's their claim. I'm not saying that everything is correct in this. Then they have this issue of strategic development and regional security. Development driven by regional security needs, focusing on indigenous missile programs. How much of it is indigenous, how much of it is with the Chinese support, that we leave it to our experts to elaborate upon. Missiles like Ghaznavi, Babar, Fateh, Nasser, these all you would have heard in various time frames in the past. These guys testing them regularly. Then as far as their operational readiness and support goes, they feel that if they are together, then the regular training and exercises will ensure combat readiness. Advanced technology like satellites, etc., can be co-opted with them. If they are with respective services, then coordination, as per them, using the various space related tools may not be that easily forthcoming. Probably this is a lesson which they have learned from of Sindoor, where they were found wanting in response to our missile attacks. So therefore, this could be possibly a lesson from Sindoor. And as far as role in national security is concerned, they are looking at deterrence against India in the conventional domain. That's their claim, that they have grouped together all the conventional missiles and not the nuclear missiles. So therefore, uh, they are trying to tell to the world that, look, we do not want to use the nuclear assets straight away. We would be responding in the conventional domain, and thereby projecting some kind of a, how do you say, a rational force which is facing a lot of enmity from across its borders, whether it is India or whether it is Afghanistan. Or, I mean, these are the two major threats which they envisage. Iran, of course, it's been on and off kind of a threat they have, but they do consider Iran also in some form or the other as a challenge. So, what are the various? What is the likely composition? It is commanded by a three-star general who is directly under the COS, which means that they really don't require any theaterization, etc. The chief of army staff is the theater or the national theater commander, and under him this particular force is going to be operating. Even the actually the national command authority is also technically under the PM, but I would say the handles are with the chief of staff. When the system is in writing, but it is directly under the chief. Then you have there are various categories of missiles which are firstly short range ballistic missiles, which are the SRBM, Nasser, and Ghaznavi. And then they have the medium range guided rockets, Fateh 1, Fateh 2, and then they have the cruise missiles called Babar, Khataf 7, Fateh 4, and then they have the medium range ballistic missiles MRBM, Shaheen, also called as Khataf 4, Shaheen 1 Alpha, and then finally, of course, they have the multiple launch rocket system A1200 MLRS, uh, which is kind of tested. I think few months back. I don't remember the exact time, but they tried to replicate our tests of this multiple re-entry vehicle. That is of course a nuclear tipped one, so it is not part of this. This is more like a MLRS, multiple launch rocket system, something like Pinaka. I don't know. You may be able to elaborate on this particular issue. I think it's something like Pinakas with a 100 to 120 kilometer range.
No, that
So this is
MLRS A100 is like a Smirch system. The
okay.
A100 is the Chinese version of the Smirch.
Okay, okay. So something like that, but I thought probably it would be something like Pinaka. Anyway, so this is the broad composition of the rocket system. Their aim is to get everything under one roof so that their training is better, response systems are better, and the utilization of the support systems, which are essentially the satellite based system, which will guide them to which will provide them the precision strike, etc. That will all come under this particular rocket force command. So with that, I now open the floor to our experts, and as you know, both are associated with the rocket systems in the past during their service, so they would be able to give you a much better perspective of why why has Pakistan gone in for army rocket force uh, immediately after Op Sindoor. Let me put it this way: this was announced on 14th August 2025 on their Independence Day. So over to you, sir. The first, I open the floor to General Shankar, and thereafter, General Harimohan Iyer can also thereafter express or put forward his views. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your opening remarks and all that. Now the point is this: during Ops Sindoor, Pakistan, if you remember, was in a position where it couldn't respond to our conventional strikes in the rear. It was a major thing. They just couldn't. They had all this, but they couldn't. Suddenly, they realized that they had invested too much in nuclear deterrence, the nuclear angle, and they had invested too much in counterforce targets, basically to stymie our advances, ground-based advances. So they found that look, when we hit them in the rear, they didn't know how to respond because their response was either nuclear. I mean, their fundamental response was nuclear, and their fundamental response was defensive. If you see all their forces, Army, Navy, and Air Force, all three forces are defensive forces. They're not offensive forces. So in the end, they were just getting hit, right? Then if they were getting hit, they needed a method by which they can hit back, and that is how. And they also realized second thing is not every time will deterrence work, or rather, nuclear deterrence won't work every time. And then they needed something in between, and they found that in Ukraine war, or for that matter, Iran Israel war, and even with their in our case also, the conventional option works. The the conventional non-contact deterrence and conventional non-contact punishment works. And suddenly they realize, look, we are stuck. and it was a one-sided affair. And that is why I think, and moreover, even their tactical missiles like Nasser. See, if you see in this, Nasser is still not there. It's a tactical missile system. They've gone nuclear. So their whole story is nuclear oriented, right? Or oriented to against or armored thrusts. Basically what they call, okay, their all our strikes, multi-pronged strikes which we have to take part and all that. So they are worried about it. They were worried and they brought this in. Well, that's the fundamental reason. It's supposed to be conventional. It is supposed to be under the army. But the dichotomy is they say that it is fashioned after the PLARF of China.
Yeah, yeah,
That's something we'll do a little comparison later. There are many ifs and buts about this, but I'll get to that a little later. This is my thing, why they have come out with it. We'll have a discussion on this and then go ahead. Back over to
yeah,
you.
yeah. General Iyer, while he's given you the basics that in Ops Sindoor they were not able to respond effectively with their missiles. I've also done a little bit of a research on this, that they did try to use the missile. In fact, one of them was used also, but it was not very effective. So, do you think there was a disconnect between the way they were going to use the unconventional missiles, or they were not as Jan Shankar said, they were not even planned to be used in an unconventional mode? Both are questions which we need to answer. So they are rethinking and rejigging their response system, and that is why they have created this particular rocket force, and they have mentioned it very clearly: conventional response. So over to you. I mean, you can
So,
give your overall views also, and on the question which I asked you.
thank you, sir, and thank you for having me on your show. Always a pleasure. Firstly, I must start with a very uh, quick statement that when Pakistan creates an organization, whether it was creation of an artillery division or heavy or light anti-tank battalions, he creates it with a vision of how to employ it. Most of the time, Indian armed forces are playing catch up. We, went for the artillery division much later than the Pakistanis. Even our recce and support battalions came up much later than his anti-tank forces. So, to that effect, I would say we need to look at this Army Rocket Force or Pakistan Rocket Force, whatever he's calling, with a little bit of analysis to say what will change should this kind of an organization come in. So that is my first point. Secondly, as far as Op Sindoor is concerned, I agree with General Shankar. You see, what happened in Op Sindoor was before Op Sindoor started, Pakistan started nuclear saber rattling even before anything happened, actually. And they said that we will respond even against the IWT being put under abeyance. They said we'll respond with a nuclear response. So they actually bound themselves into a shell, if I was to say. And thereafter, they got stuck because the only place where they had long range vectors, they were all in their strategic command force. And therefore, they got stuck because then any use of these forces can be termed as possible start of a nuclear engagement. And that is possibly what the Americans inferred from the way the battle progressed. If you see what Trump keeps saying every time he comes on this thing, he said they were about to go nuclear. They were about to start a nuclear war. Because while Pakistan says that they have a first use doctrine, India has said that if it is used, we will retaliate. So, should a mishap happen with a nuclear weapon, it is going to start a nuclear engagement. So, that is one reason. Possibly, they could have even come under pressure from the Americans to create a kind of force which operates under the nuclear threshold. And that is possibly what this particular organization is all about. The second issue which I would like to emphasize upon is he is not creating any new weapon systems here. He is just rearranging his arsenal into strategic and conventional kind of response mechanisms. Possibly, he may like to add the Turkish drones which came late into Op Sindoor. He was not able to apply them in the manner that they should have been or could have been, and therefore possibly he is creating a command and organization for such kind of weaponry. So we should not get too much carried away by him creating an organization with existing weapon systems. And as you brought out, sir, they did use, whether it was a Fateh or whether it was a Shaheen, it's still questionable. We intercepted it over Sirsa, and if you saw the day when that video came when of this missile being launched, the person who was launching the missile had no control on the weapon system. In fact, if you see the longer video which came, showed that it was all haphazardly done. They didn't know what was the response. And the last issue which I'd like to say before I hand it over back to you is all our long range engagements in Op Sindoor were air launched weapons. We did not use ground based BrahMos on any Pakistani assets. We applied air launched weapons against his air bases, very specific air bases, possibly those air bases which could have been used by him for nuclear delivery. So it has actually created a kind of a scenario when he doesn't have such kind of a response mechanism. His JF 17 or his F-16s don't have that kind of long range air to surface missile systems which he can respond with. There was a lot of talk about why Babur has not been integrated with the F-16 when it is somewhat a replica of the Tomahawk. So a lot of chatter happened on that call also. So maybe he's looking at creating something, and like you said, you may call it Army Rocket Force, but it is like a theater rocket force. It can be used by any kind of delivery means. So we'll have to see how this thing progresses in the term of what is its overall charter. How does he, put it across his entire front line, and what kind of doctrine does he bring out along with his rocket force? This could be the one which I can leave in the first part of the discussion. We can carry on as things progress.
Yeah, so I think you've raised a very interesting point. Till now we were debating, and Rajiv has been a propounder of that. We hit something very, very interesting as far as Nur Khan and the hills where we struck uh, supposedly some
Supposedly,
nuclear, supposedly some nuclear assets, etc. And they didn't have a response equivalent of hitting us conventionally. So possibly now they have thought of looking at grouping all their conventional assets into one, and maybe since they don't have the adequate number of quantities, so being a scarce resource, they thought it would be better utilized if it is grouped together and then diverted to wherever it can be diverted. After all, they do not have too much of a large area to look at. Their interest, I mean, they are safe as far as the Chinese are concerned. Against Afghanistan, I don't think they need to do any kind of a missile attack or something of that nature. If need be, they can always rejig it up. So it's a very interesting argument that maybe nuclear only response was the response available with Pakistan, or they were not prepared for a non-nuclear response in the way they should have. They did not expect the way we reacted. Possibly, they only felt that we are going to react aerial to aerial. I mean, that was, to my mind, looks like they did not play the game of chess to its logical conclusion, where we actually started hitting the missiles on their major assets. So I tend to
Can I
agree
put,
with that.
can I
Yeah. So
add to
so
what you said? Because I think it's a very
I'm
interesting thing.
yeah. So
We need
I
to,
wanted your comment on this, that Jal Shankar, that what do you think this is one of the major reasons, and not the
yeah,
not that nuclear thing which initially people were propagating, that it was the
see,
nuclear strike, a strike against the nuclear asset which led to the war being stopped so early.
okay, look, the way I look at it, I go with both of you. I just want to elaborate it, and I go with what Rajiv Narayanan also has said.
Hmm.
Let me put it. This is my hypothesis. I'll put it across.
Yeah.
Uh, Look, if Pakistan had invested its missile force as a nuclear deterrent, their philosophy was of nuclear deterrence and never as conventional deterrence. They were orienting their tactical nukes and strategic nukes, all these nukes against our cold start doctrine, right? In this
Oh,
entire
yes.
visualization of battle, they never imagined that we'll hit them in the rear. They thought if how will they hit the rear? They never thought that we'll do the vertical way and hit them in the rear without breaching the LOC. I think that took them completely by surprise, and I think that caught them flat footed. Now, what happened on 10th morning? What is the status on 10th morning, 10th May? I mean, that is the critical thing. On 10th May, those bases where you could operate, nuclear weapons from, that is Sargoda or Nurkan, or for that
Chakrada.
matter, Jacobabad, yeah, all these, they were all down. All those bases were down. You couldn't, fly aircraft with nuclear weapons from there. Second, also, all their, anyone will tell us that all the nuclear weapons, nuclear launchers and all, would be in the shadow of these bases, basically to give them air defense. That was also down, so they couldn't get those out. I don't think they had the confidence to get them out. Plus, the way we operated with our EW and our, uh, uh, jam their communications, I don't think their command and communications were in a reasonably good shape at all. In fact, I thought they had lost control. As a result, they didn't have the thing. They were missing a conventional force which can strike back. They had nothing except one odd launch of that, A100 or Fatah missile, which they said, and it was all about Allahu Akbar rather than anything sensible. And even that got, intercepted. So they were actually defenseless. They didn't have anything. I mean, that's the bare fact. So now they're manufacturing something. What will this do? This they hope, or rather that should be their plan. If I were there, this is the way I would plan it and think about it. Is get this army, rocket force out of the air bases, AO, and deploy it ahead and disperse it so that in the situation, if it repeats itself and we start attacking their rear first tomorrow, they have the capability to retaliate conventionally against, if you read whatever little has come out, they say it will not be used against their formations and counterforce targets and all, but it will
Yes.
be used
Yes.
against ammunition bunkers, airfields,
Ra- runways.
artillery, yeah, all that, runways and all. This is not, they want to do something like what we did to them through this force, right? I think that is the thing. Now, you know, every article which I've read on this rocket force, they say it's modeled on the PLA, but I don't
Yes.
think so. I don't think so. If you read the PLA RF, the PLA
Hmm.
RF has a combination of conventional and nuclear warheads.
Both.
It's not. They've got both. Whichever you take DF-17, DF-21, you take DF-5, everything has got a conventional and a nuclear
Ab-
warhead.
Absolutely.
They're not right. And PLA operates on ambiguity,
Ambiguity.
complete ambiguity. Okay. And they're looking at launch on detection kind of a story. Okay. So the point is, I don't think it is modeled on the PLA or the PLA RF. They're coming out with something, it has got a lot of holes. And it is my view that a PLA RF, if it has to come, it's not the launchers which matter. What matters is the communication, command control, surveillance setup. Unless you have a Recce strike integration, the way I mean Recce strike integration is a Russian terminology. So if you have that, you go into that. The greater emphasis on Recce strike integration is surveillance, UAVs, satellites, even ground insertion. Even all these, plus the fact that you need to have communication, and you need to have very good intelligence across to hit targets. A lot of it is target mapping, target intelligence, and all that, and then matching the right weapon for this. So does Pakistan have all this at this point of time? It has nothing. Will Pakistan? This opens another issue. Pakistan has some rockets, missiles, and all that that Babar cruise missile and all that. But who's going to give them this? If tomorrow this rocket force has to be used, obviously they'll have to go to China for it. Like what was brought out that the Chinese gave them the int about or information about or strike. That's what our deputy chief also mentioned. Okay, so they have to go to China. Then it comes back to the first point which we ended Op Sindoor with. We were not fighting a separate battle with China and Pakistan. The two front scenario is out now. It's a ceaseless front. So it actually tells you something else, right? That if Pakistan has to use this rocket force today, then you're not actually the Chinese are fully complicit in this at this point of time. Whether if Pakistan comes up with capabilities in future is a different story. So, but I don't think so. So I think we have to look at it from different viewpoints. It's just not that they have a set of rockets, they're going to hit our airfields and all. How they you going to use it, and where China comes, and if China does come in, it will come in. Otherwise, they can't use it at this point of time. So how do you
Okay,
react?
so I think you're making a point quite valid. First of all, it may not be as of today a direct copy of the the Chinese rocket force, but since the issue of China has come up in the discussion, I would like to add two, three more aspects to it. Firstly, what I have read is it says that the entire guidance and precision strike is going to be dependent on the PISAT group of the Chinese, right? So PISAT satellites of the Chinese. Now that's a different country's system, which is going to be integrated on this. We know that, of course, China and Pakistan work together quite a bit. Then they've also said that where the satellites are not likely to succeed, they're going to have a drone support system also as part of the rocket force. And I think John Iyer also mentioned about it that they would add the drones to this particular rocket force so that the response becomes much more robust and more flexible. More options are there. Now, if they are going to have these two, three diverse systems which are going to actually go ahead and make their rocket force operational, how much do you think will be the success in future? And then this I'll throw it to John Iyer, of this rocket force being effective against India, or do we have any countermeasures whereby we can disintegrate this entire kill chain or Reiki strike? What John Shankar mentioned. Yeah. So
So,
John Iyer.
thank you. Firstly, if you look at Pakistani Air Force, and this is not that it has started now, it's historically being a air defense oriented Air Force. It has never had offensive air capability. It was capable to blunt any counter air operations to a large extent because they were designed in that manner. To that effect, they don't have any long range vectors which are part of their air force per se. So that is one thing which I would like to add. Second issue is, what will they respond with? There have been, like I said, nothing new is coming. The weapons which have been relocated are weapons which are capable to be countered by us. So whether it is a Shaheen or whether it's a Hath or whether it is a Ghaznavi, these are missiles which can be taken out by our air defense system the way we have organized our air defense system, especially with the new systems that are coming. I don't want to mention it here, but then by and large we all know what I'm referring to. So that is the second thing which is there. Thirdly, where they got foxed in this particular Op Sindoor was that the entire launch of these long range vectors happened deep inside India, outside possibly their pickup ranges, and they were not expecting cruise missile launches at their depth. You see, if a BrahMos is fired from the ground, it has a degree of ballistic trajectory before it takes on into a cruise mode. Whereas when you fire it from the air, it is almost going flat. So these were like invisible missiles which came and hit them, and the kind of velocities with which BrahMos travels, it is impossible for a normal weapon system to interact, and that's how they got lost totally. And if you look at what they did on the sixth or seventh, they were able to possibly identify where the scalps were launched from. But the BrahMos, they were totally taken aback. So that is something which possibly has triggered it. And second thing, which I can bring the elephant into the room. India, when we read China and we look at Chinese armed forces, the one thing which we all keep discussing, whether it is in any forum, is the PLA rocket force. And it is something which has psyched India to a large extent. Every war game or discussion that I have been part of in the last 8-9 years, including when the Chinese came home in the northern sector, it was revolving around the Chinese rocket force. It could be a bogey which Pakistan is now trying to build to say that yes, I am also created one. So it is something he's trying to divert you to start discussing on something. Which that's why I said we should not be worried till the time new assets come into his armory. As it stands, he's got very limited number of A100s, which General Shankar said is old variety of Smirch missiles, which in fact we are not wanting to use anymore. It can be picked up very easily and taken out. And all his missiles, whether it is whatever he may name them, they are Chinese, old vintage Chinese rockets with a new name which is using. None of them have supersonic capability. They don't have hypersonic missiles anywhere in the horizon. So whether he regroups these missiles under one umbrella, it is his own way of looking at doing things. I feel, and since you had mentioned it in the beginning, I'm possibly preempting you here. The moment you increase the level of coordination of these to a higher level, they will be that much more difficult to employ them on ground. It should be decentralized to the operational commander. Then only these things will get employed. And if the chief of army staff of Pakistan is going to give directions of use of rocket force, I'm very sure nothing is going to happen. They may have multiple ops Sindoors and they'll go home with their missiles back into the ammunition depots without being fired. So, to that extent, I don't think it is an issue to worry us. Yes, we need to look at the possible doctrines and try and find out how the rocket force from conventional will mesh in with his nuclear command, and how he will be able to distribute these assets. Like General Shankar said, if he deploys it in the areas in front, then there is no nuclear threshold left with him. Thereafter, he can't pull them backwards. So he is going to be in a very big dilemma how to employ them. And these are interesting times, and I am actually looking forward to seeing how he proposes. I'm sure next couple of years when you have these war games and exercises, they're quite interesting to be followed to see how he plans employment of this force.
I think what General Iyer is also saying is given a new viewpoint to it. But I will ask now the next most important question. The one part of my question got unanswered, so I will push it to Jan Shankar also, and that is, how good do you think the coordination will be? You see, it was not very good during Op Sindoor. All of you have said so. As far as the kill chain is concerned, the satellites were of the Chinese, the drones were of the Turkish guys, and some were, I believe, indigenous also. But so all this mix of equipment, etc., which they had used for carrying out their strikes, with this centralization, how good will be their effect as far as the strikes are concerned? Uh, Decentralization is another issue, but centralized, suppose, because they have said that they're going to hit runways. They have selected certain targets for this particular force. So in that aspect, do you think the Chinese collaboration will be better as compared to the last conflict, one. And two, that is the major question which I want to ask General Shankar is, and also to General Iyer subsequently, is that uh, why or should India go in for a rocket force? One, and if not, why not? As far as India is concerned, because it should not happen like the RT division. We ultimately went in for an RT division, and we got three RT divisions with us. So,
Yeah,
a little bit of
yeah.
analysis of that, I think,
First,
would be good
let's
point for
take
General
the
Shankar.
Pakistan case. How effective will this force be?
Mhm.
I go with what General Harimohan said completely. That
Okay.
this will not be an effective force for a long time, and the reason is this. Right. They've suffered a lot of casualties, equipment casualties in Ops Sindoor. They've not made it up. Whatever you like, and who's giving it to them? China. China is right now not very happy with them. So if you see everything, I don't think China is in a hurry to give them anything. No, Turkey might, but Turkey will want money, which they don't have really. I mean, they might appropriate 14% of the GDP towards defense and all that, but at the end of the day, they don't have that kind of money, and USA will not give them anything. So first and foremost, I think they have a problem in replacing what they have, and then they will have to get to this and all that for quite some time. I don't think this is a force which is we really have to bother. There's no danger from this force, but over a longer time, given the way Pakistanis think and act, we have to start monitoring this force and see how it is going to be used, right? And it's his force; he can use it the way he wants, right? And he's devious. We must also grant it that Pakistan is devious in his employment of arms, equipment, and all that. So he will have some effect. And basically, he's created another layer for you to target. So all these will factor in. It's not something thing we should be worried about. There's another thing, immediately after about a month after Op Sindoor, they started coming out with a doctrine called Pro Quid Quo Plus. It came out in a article in Dawn under Prism, and
Okay.
that I've analyzed it. The Pro Quid Quo Plus talks of two things. One is their current level of deterrence has failed. That they need another level of deterrence, a higher level. It is something like Uh, I mean, how do I say it? It's more rhetoric than anything else. That we should have this, we should have this, we should have God to help us to strike India down, kind of a rant. But the fact is that pro quid quo plus, if you see these three four words are coming repeatedly in every article about this rocket force. So there is a cognitive element to this which will hit us कि भाई इसके पीछे है क्या? What is this pro quid quo plus? So and then they've also gone back to the fact that look, they also feel with the pro quid quo plus thing, they've created a conventional force and they also have a nuclear force. So they'll start playing ambiguity. That's the natural thing, is they'll start playing ambiguity as we go along. So that is what we have to keep track of. Now let's come to our own story. Okay, maybe the rocket force in the case of India is a necessity. I said maybe. But before we get to that, we should be clear how we're going to employ it, right? And this is a pretty serious thing. Uh, do we have an employment philosophy for a rocket force? That's the first question. The second question is, you're theaterizing at this point of time, right? So, would you like to do theaterization or would you like to do a rocket force? Because you can't keep changing organizations every night. Organizational changes happen with time, and you have a good thing going at this point of time. You have a pretty good way of inter-service coordination through our chiefs. and that worked out well in Op Sindoor. So why are we getting one more layer in? There are a lot of ifs and buts in this whole story of, again, the issue is you need to have a ISR for this. You have to have the Restructuring uh, assets for this. Unless you have thought the whole thing out, which shouldn't come in. One. Number two, if you have, how will this operate, if at all it comes, with the theater system, which we are going to head into? If the theater commander has all these items and he's got the C4 ISR for all this, why do you need a rocket force separately? You don't need it, right? The PLA RF has a different purpose altogether. Do you want to have this just as a conventional force? Or would you like to have it as part of an ambiguous force? If that is the case, the strategic forces which we have, plus the rocket force which we intend to have, should be mixed. Right? And that's a major thinking that also ties in with your nuclear doctrine and your posture and all that. So I think at this point of time, we shouldn't, I mean, we might eventually need it. I'm not saying no to it. Right? But at this point of time, I don't think we should even attempt to do it because we might be doing too many things and we might lose the larger aim. Okay, unless we have the larger aim in mind. Larger aim today is the theaterization, which our Prime Minister has already announced in 2009 from 19 from the ramparts of the Red Fort. Okay, there is some rethinking because of what's happened in Op Sindoor, but since till we have clarity on that, I don't think the rocket force is an option at all. Yeah, back to you.
Yeah, so I think you tend to say that go slow, read the situation, see how our structures are evolving in the future, theaterization, no theaterization, current systems. There are so many ifs and buts as far as our approach for the rocket force is concerned. So the
And
current
one
system,
more issue. Yeah, one more issue is we are getting a lot of equipment coming in, especially
yeah.
in
So
this, right? Let us stabilize the equipment before
okay,
you know,
so
right? It we
uh, uh,
and we worked. It's worked in battle. All this has worked in battle. Yeah.
okay, so basically, it's kind of a strategic forces are centralized. The conventional forces are still remain decentralized under Army, Air Force, and the Navy. India, for the time being, as per your recommendation, is in the mode of let us see how we evolve in the future. As far as theaterization becomes one of the primary conditions before we undertake this kind of a change as far as our organization goes. There are number of issues related to this particular move, but we don't have that much of time, so we will quickly go to Jan Iyer and ask you that same question: do we need, and if we need, how should we get it done, and in what time frame? So quickly,
So,
then we
so,
then we can take on questions.
so I have three. I put it under three different contentions. Firstly, long range vectors are a reality in the current and future engagements wherever we are, especially in a nuclear scenario where you have nuclear overhang. Long range vectors will be used by all opposing forces, and that's a reality. And Ukraine war has just only re emphasized the fact that long range vectors are a necessity. And that is why possibly, and I was just about to retire when we had this last set of RT conference where we raised it to the chief that we can't do with the kind of long range vectors that has been scaled in the RT profile, and we need to review it. And now General Shankar had made that profile long time back. It got derailed somewhere a decade ago, and it has come back to rails in the last since the last artillery conference. And now we are working towards almost the same kind of capability. So rocket force is a necessity, and it's something we should understand. At the same time, somewhere in 2022, there was a little chatter about Air Force creating a organization with all long range vectors under its umbrella. And at that time, I was asked by the chief to write a paper, and I wrote.
2021.
which
They were
I wrote.
calling it. They were
Yeah,
calling it
20
a
paper.
integrated rocket force.
Exactly. So I wrote a paper at that time, and my thought process was, especially with related to for organization we created as the artillery division, we went up and possibly looked how the Pakistanis did and created these organizations, with kind of if you look at the way 40 RTDIB was raised in 1998-99, it was raised as a formation which can hit deep. In fact, it still carries deep strikers as its motto, right? But what did we equip it with? We equipped it with guns, traditional guns. Then those days, possibly equipment wasn't there. Like General Shankar says, now we are getting the equipment. So when I wrote the paper, I said a formation which has long range vectors should be able to see what it has to hit, and it also has to also understand whether it has hit its target or not. So both ISR and PSD are an essential ingredient of any such force. And therefore, I had recommended in that paper that the artillery divisions, three of them that we have, needs to be reorganized with having one pure ISR kind of a formation and two long range vectors kind of formations, and all the guns which the artillery formations divisions are holding should be handled by core forces, reinforcing artillery brigades, core RT brigades which are available in the system. By this, artillery divisions can work under theatre commanders. When I say theatre commanders, the army commanders, since we have an artillery division in almost each of our armies, and they can be used in operational engagement of those operational targets which are in depth and which needs to have a kind of a concentrated application. And that was a paper which I sent, and I stand by it that we don't have to create new organizations. We need to reorganize our existing organizations. When you look at long range vector, it is not that you're going to fight a war only with long range vectors. Targets will be engaged across the length and breadth of the area of interest. And that area of interest will be decided by the theatre commander as to where he wants to process his operations. And therefore, you can't isolate and put everything under one central umbrella. And that's why I feel Pakistan has actually, by creating this force, added problems to itself. Because if they are going to deploy these assets far ahead and they are going to be controlled by the chief of army staff from Rawalpindi, I don't see them getting employed. And even if they get employed, they are not going to be effective. This is my way of reading things. It needs to be decentralized to the theatre commander. I will say to the operational commander, the corps commander should have a limited degree of accessibility to these long range vectors, and that can only happen if you are having an integrated organization within yourself. You can't create a new organization which works centrally and expect it to work in your thing. That is what theaterization is all about. You are trying to ensure that the assets are available within the theater. And if you are looking at some kind of a force of that nature, there are organizations within our systems which can be rejigged in the manner that they are effective and properly equipped and capable of undertaking all the tasks which are envisaged from such a force. And therefore, I do not visualize creation of another new elephant or a new organization, which I think, if I don't forget, one of our SFC commanders had also proposed somewhere, I think in 2019 or 2020, that apart from having strategic units, there should be a degree of, conventional units placed under his command. That didn't work because that's what Pakistan has done, and that's why it didn't work. So I feel decentralization and recreated organization, which is capable of achieving the kind of targets which these vectors are going to be used for, is the way forward. And possibly once we have theaterized, we can review it at a later stage.
I think what we have come to the conclusion is that, well, while there is a need for a rocket force, but the context has to be clarified first, and the context is whether we are going to fight the way we have been fighting till now, or whether we are going to go in for theaterization, as theaterization itself has come under some kind of a re-debate, re-questioning, etc. So we will have to look at that outcome and then look as to how we are going to organize the rocket force. Because one thing is surely true, And that is what General Shankar also mentioned, and General Iyer, you also mentioned that non-contact phase is going to be longer, probably more prolonged, and maybe working independently of the tactical battle area operations which are going on. Russia Ukraine is one example of this, where the non-contact forces are doing things uh, somewhat independent of the ground operations which are going on. Of course, ultimately everything affects the ground operations. If the morale, motivation, etc., in the supply chains are disturbed, then definitely the opposing force is that much weaker. So, with that, what I can conclude, because we have to go in for question answer sessions also, is that ARF, which has been raised by Pakistan, is possibly a method of overcoming its shortcomings which it saw during Op Sindoor. So it's trying to create a cognitive effect in the minds of its adversaries, which will, as you all said, we'll start discussing about this in our war games, etc. So ultimately, it will become a factor. Now, that factor has to be analyzed well by the people who, or the powers that be, to ensure that it is taken realistically and not magnified into a demon which kind of accelerates our motivational and the motivational factor of our soldiers, leaders, commanders, etc. So that is one factor. The second factor is that the ARF has been hurriedly cobbled up. We also don't know how much of it is going to be used for nuclear, how much is going to be used for non-nuclear. We don't know the quantum of launchers which are going to be there for the ARF. All that is still vague. I think as time goes by, we will start having these informations coming out, and then possibly we can take a real stock as to why, how much of an effect the ARF is going to have on our systems. So therefore, we'll end our talk here. And as far as India is concerned, India is has to do an initial wait and watch. What are the doctrines which are coming out of Pakistan to use this particular ARF force? How are they going to use it? Broad hints have already started coming that they are going to use it for A, B, C, D type of targets. The But one thing is very clear, that Op Sindoor has really shaken them up, and that is why this rocket force has come up in this way. And the last point, which I now feel we can add to our analysis which we have been doing, that besides the strikes which took place, and where people got upset that possibly nuclear assets have been, if not hit, but at least some kind of a damage has been done. It's also that non-availability of a conventional option in response to our conventional strikes which we did may have led to creation of this particular force. And the doubts which I still have, and most both of you have tried to gloss over it, is, and that is this coordination between the Chinese system, giving it, see, like in our case we had our own satellites which we were able to kind of redefine, rejig, and carry out those strikes. In the case of China, in Pakistan, it has to depend entirely on the Pakistani PISAT constellation to actually carry out its strike. So therefore, in my view, I think that is one big question mark. Unless they prove it in battle next time, we will we will not be able to tell whether they will be successful or not successful. So with that, if you all permit, we can take on the
So,
question. Unless you have,
I just,
unless you have last
I
minute,
just have one, I just have one point to add,
yeah,
sir. What
yeah,
you said actually brings out a very, very common fact that
mhm,
all long-range vectors held by Pakistan are Chinese. Whether you call it HUF or you call it M11 or you
yeah,
call it DF, ultimately you can keep changing names. For a country which doesn't have a space program to be capable of churning out long range missiles like what indicates there is something not correct. And in this kind of MTCR kind of regime, if Pakistan says that I am using Chinese satellites to target, the vector and the ISR being the two elements, it actually says that they are Chinese systems being renamed.
so any last final last minute
Yeah, I'm
comments by
okay.
you?
We'll take questions.
Okay, so there is a start question by Girvesh, and it is on the Gunshot channel. Good evening, generals. Please do one episode on Nicobar and Andaman role in the world renewable energy security. One sun, one grid, one tariff, one world. So this is meant for you, sir.
Yeah, yeah,
So
we'll do it.
you can assure him of
Yeah, we'll do it.
and thank him for the 100 rupees which he has uh, contributed. Sir. So therefore, right, sir. Uh, so I'll go to the next question, sir. Then
Yeah, yeah, please.
okay. Uh, oh, I think this was just a thing which came to my mind. Yeah. Any question which is worth taking on? There is one question which I think needs your response, and that is by yeah. Uh, this question. Uh, we'll start one by one, sir.
Yeah,
You could answer this question, sir, John Shankar. Sir.
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
geography to our west
For
called Park is in shambles. Economically, they cannot afford a rocket command, let alone a force. The American Chinese freemen, American Chinese
Freemium,
premium. Okay,
freemium मिला है.
okay.
premium.
Your
Yeah,
views.
yeah, I agree with you. That's what I made a point also, Akash, and you're absolutely right on this. That is why I said the rocket force is not going to come in a hurry, right? Neither will China give anything to them, nor will Pakistan give anything to them. So we shouldn't really be worried about it. That's what the whole story is. Let's see. Let's keep monitoring it.
So I
And
always
also,
feel
I also all this big talk is to also get Mr. Munir continue in his field marshal role. Don't don't forget that inward looking ideas also.
So I
Yeah.
always said that the rockets which the Pakistanis hold are basically Chinese discards. So that is how they are able to create. And I don't think the numbers which are being reflected are true inventory numbers, and they are highly inflated numbers in my mind. And that actually came out loud and clear in Op Sindoor when they were struggling to find a response. Even Babar, much to its much touted so-called Tomahawk replica, I don't think it has actually achieved the kind of results that it is shown to be capable of. So let's not get worried about what Pakistan does.
Yeah, so this is another one. This Jan Iyer, you can start off. Pakistan looks like a suicide bomber, proxy state who takes money, weapons, and blow themselves while hurting India. हम तो डूबेंगे तुम्हें लेकर डूबेंगे is their thinking because anyway Pak is failed. This is just a comment. I think you don't have to
Yes,
answer.
yes,
You
no,
don't
well
have to
known.
answer. I'll ask you another question which I think today there are a lot of criticism which are taking place. I'll tell Jal Shankar to keep I mean, look at the comments in the chat box. So they are targeted at us. So, sir, even in yesterday's match, after they lost, they are blabbering. How can atomic country got defeated and humiliated by not shaking hands? They bring atomic bulk in everything. Brainwashed community. Yeah, I think
So,
today people are freaking out because of cricket. Because yesterday we got some invites. There was a program on cricket, and they were asking us to come over. Why to give talks. What for what reason? That we won a victory in cricket. So this is a response to Pelgam and everything. I think people have to be very conscious of the fact that we have a job cut out for us. Cricket is not the field. We are something like the rugby players. So our game is different from cricket. So that is more for. So yeah, I don't know. This let me see. What will be the future response of Pakistan? based on their present experience? Can we handle if our major centers are under attack, as Pakistan will be thirsting for revenge? Yeah, this is one question which Jan Iyer you could attempt. Abhi tak to they were all bashing
So,
Pakistan.
so firstly, we should know what is the capability. Like, as I said, I don't actually accept the kind of numbers which are put out in the open source in terms of holdings of these kind of long range vectors. And I once again say that Pakistan's inability to respond to our long range vectors during Ops Sindoor can be taken as one of the reasons why this theory has some degree of truth in it. Whether they are struggling to put them in place, these are questions. And I personally don't feel Pakistan has the capability of producing so many long range missiles as they claim themselves to be. That is first part. And secondly, as far as we are concerned, you know, we have a fantastic air defense system which has come into our orbit. More of it is coming through in the next 2 to 3 years, and if it is deployed in the manner in which it is perceived to be, almost all our population centers, etc., where these supposed long range vectors can actually land, can be covered by these vectors. Even after Balakot, we were able to ensure that we don't have depth penetration by any vectors from Pakistan side. And even during Ops Sindoor, he was not able to penetrate anywhere beyond the line of control and immediate depth. So to that extent, we should be rest assured that the nation is on the right path. Even the new system which the DRDO is working on, called the Kusha, which is also likely to enter into our system in the next 3 to 4 years, is going to create or more kind of capability as far as counter ballistic missile capability of India. And as a citizen, I'm sure we should not be worried. Yeah, one odd vector might land somewhere; they could create some damage. That is possibly acceptable in case of a conflict, like it happened in Israel. 100% capability nobody can guarantee, but a very high degree of counter ballistic missile capability is available with us.
This question I want Jan Shankar to answer, because this is something which is a big no as far as I am concerned. So the question is, in view of India's improving relations with China, can't we now not buy fighters jets, other and wait and make our own Tejas and MK? Basically, he's saying, why wait for Tejas and MK which are not coming, which are not on the horizon? Let me put it this way. So let's buy it from China. So
How
you
can
may
you buy
like to
it from
answer
China?
this.
No, no,
It's
no
out of the box
question.
question. It's an out of the box question. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
people
but
are really
you
trying.
see,
People are really trying to rake the brain as to how to get over this engine problem, which India has been facing for the last so many years, and we are unable to make the aircrafts on air. 114 of Tejas, and then Rafales, etc. Saffron engine, Kaveri engine. We are just floating around in this particular field. So we must appreciate this point.
no,
Over to
let
you.
me put it. Okay, now let me put it in context, and forget about the fact that we have to buy from China, and we need to make our own Tejas and AMCA. See,
Yeah,
at this
that's
point
the
of
real
time,
question.
let's look at the larger picture. At this point of time, what's the government of India doing? The government of India knows that there's a problem as far as availability of aircraft is concerned. So we are doing 4 5 things. One, we are, that proposal for 114 Rafales is, en route. We are also talking with Russia because they've come to Nasik to look at the, MiG plants in Nasik, and they're probably looking at going the Su 457 way. We are also speaking to the Americans for the 414 engines. We are also speaking to Safran for engine which can be fitted into the Tejas. So we are doing 4 5 things simultaneously. So I'm sure the government is gripped with the problem, and we'll give them that, grant them that capability. I would say the urgency to do what they have to do. We shouldn't also forget that 36 Rafales for our carriers are already contracted. So it's not as if we are in a thing. We're in a bad shape. Totally. So 36 means two squadrons. So it's there. Now let's look at what is our threat. Ultimately, everything is related to threat. Okay. Now, if you have shortage of uh, aircraft, I'm sure at some level we have taken already a decision to increase the number of rockets and missiles for which you have adequate capability. This is the basic minimum which we should have done and we would have done. Okay. And we have very good rockets and missiles, so we shouldn't unnecessarily worry. Now, is there a great air threat from China? The air threat from China is more about rockets and missiles rather than fixed wing aircraft because they don't have that capability. Okay, is there a great threat from Pakistan? Pakistan still remains an air defense force. So at this point of time, you have a window. You have a window of about 4 5 years. Of course, wars can happen anytime. There's no gainsaying that fact. But you also look at the internal situation in China. Who's not going to fight? He wants to mend fences with you. He's not going to come and fight, right? So, and Pakistan is really not in a position to fight. He's not recovered from Sindoor, and I don't think he'll recover for the next 2 3 years. And my own guess is after a year or two, maximum two, Pakistan will go back to being on a lifeline, and this fellow will start getting unpopular, who is field marshal. So I don't see anything happening in a hurry. If you see, there's a lot of hot air coming from Pakistan, but very little, uh, very little tangible threat. So I think we
Yeah,
have time, we have elbow room, we have alternates to handle these threats. We should, you're getting Pralay, you're getting a hypersonic missile which was tested last year,
yeah,
right? So we are not in a bad shape. So I don't think we should flap as it. Maybe in
yeah.
the
I mean,
next 3 to 4 years, if things don't improve, then we should start thinking again, but not now.
yeah, yeah. You're right, sir. In fact, uh, there are audience which are trying to answer our question.
So that's
One of them
okay.
said that
Yeah.
no. I'm just saying, just for the discussion to be made more lighter. One of them is saying that Pakistan, is in habit of sleeping with everyone. That does
Yeah.
not realize that it will acquire AIDS. So Pakistan is going to. So so next question, which is of course different, is. Sunil Bhatwana, we have a big problem, and the cognitive understanding of Arab ideology from medieval times to now, we are more moralistic. It is very important for us to understand the concept of total war. General Iyer, basically, he's trying to say that the morals have a limit. Yeah.
So
So,
wars, it's not that the wars are happening only today. In fact, if I was to look at it from the medieval times, the number of wars and conflicts have only reduced. But to that extent, the way things are going ahead, we should start looking at avoiding wars because a good and a capable armed force will ensure that no adversary dares to get into a conflict, and that should be the kind of mantra at which. And I'm sure the way our government is today enunciating its ordeals, whatever it says, and it says very clearly that war is not an option. That I guess is the way forward. That doesn't mean that we let our guard down. We create capabilities and we ensure that not only war is not an option for us, we ensure that we make it so hard for our adversary that he doesn't dare come and get into a war kind of a scenario. So I don't think a total war is anywhere on the horizon in the near future, and we should not get worried about it.
even if it is not, preparation is something which should continue, and I think the stick has to be strong for people to fall in line.
So that's why I
So,
said
so I
we have to be capable enough to avoid deter war.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. This is a oft repeated question. What I find scary, and this has come in the various social media also. So I thought, let me put it up to Shankar. What I find scary about them that they are radical enough to merge rocket and dirty bomb. They can do such insane things, radicalistan. So basically, he's asking, can they mix in this particular rocket force which they are trying to create in the garb that okay, they are firing conventional, but can they do a mix of the two? Uh, what are the chances of this kind of an option? Over to you, sir.
I don't think it's feasible at all. We might think they're radical, but they might be radical, but they're not fools, right? The Pakistani generals want power. The day a nuclear weapon is used, there's a good chance that that will be the end of their power. Then all their islands which they're buying in, Australia, those flats which they're buying in Mayfair, London, and businesses with like Papa John's which they're acquiring in New York, will all go. I mean, let's be very clear. This is a and the biggest political party in Pakistan is the Pakistan Army. The biggest business house is Pakistan Army. If by any chance that they lose hold on all that, end of story. If they use nuclear option, all that goes. All of them are cognizant of the fact that they want to go and live in Dubai in one of those fancy houses out there. So they'll not make this mistake. Don't think they're fools. The Pakistani general is a shrewd character. He plays everything for his self. He's self before service and nation and everything. So these are all pawns. Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, this is the last question to you, General Iyer, and because thereafter I think we don't have time. We've already crossed 10 minutes to Pakistan's recent establishment of the ARFC and unveiling of the Fateh 4 missile. How is India adopting its missile defense and offensive strategies to maintain strategic balance in the region?
So whether it is Fateh 1, Fateh 2, Fateh 4, Fateh 15, they are renaming Chinese missiles, like I said. Our S-400 has shown its capability in intercepting. We are, like I said, creating what I think it was called Sudarshan Dome or something, which the Prime Minister announced. It's a very far-sighted kind of a program where a large amount of funds are being invested towards creating missile defense across the length and breadth of the country. We are on the right track. DRDO has done a very good job as far as counter missile capability is concerned, and they have demonstrated the same. We are buying more S-400s from the Russians, which are going to come into service in the next couple of years. Once 5 regiments worth of S-400 comes, I don't think there will be gaps in which we are going to be vulnerable as far as counter missile or counter ballistic missile capabilities are concerned. And let me be very clear to say it's not just targeting conventional missiles. We are looking at giving us protection from any possible nuclear threat that could emanate either from the northern or western borders with ballistic missiles. So, to that effect, India is well on course to create enough shields to protect ourselves because we, as one, do not want a nuclear holocaust to emanate in this region. And I'm sure we are on the right track.
There are a number of other questions and very important questions, but I'll request the audience to keep these questions for the next round of discussions which we have. They can be asked. They're all related to military, space force, and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, you all started asking the serious questions toward the end, and I was not able to actually go through them. With that, sir, thank you to
There's
both of
one
you, sir, for
member
having.
who's joined, if you could highlight it. Rajiv Gaur.
Acha, he's just come. Earlier there was it is Rajiv Gaur.
Yeah, thanks
Rajiv
a
Gaur.
lot, Rajiv, for joining in as a member. And I'll let you know how to contribute more for people because, like I said, it is basically to help people. Yeah.
So, with that, we come to the end of today's discussion. So, thank you very much. It was very, very lively. The chat box was live with a lot of questions being asked among themselves. Jai Hind, and till we meet next time, sir.
Jai Hind, sir.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much,
Jai
sir.
Hind.